Hey y'all, welcome back. Today we're checking out 7 British insults I had never heard before moving to the UK.
We are not offended in the absolute slightest by the use of this word around us because we have no context of it being a rather obscene swear word.
What you talking about? Y'all be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. I know she ain't talking about that C word.
Hi and welcome back to the Girl Gone London channel. My name is Kaylin. I'm a dual UK and American citizen, and today I am talking about some British insults that I had never heard before moving to the UK. Now, I would like to say that not all of these have been directed at me during my time here. Some of them have, but half the time, I didn't know someone was insulting me or what they actually meant, so it didn't matter anyway. We often talk about words and phrases that are used in the UK but not used in the US, and so I just thought we'd take a little bit of an insulting slant. Now, British people in their minds right now are probably thinking the most obscene insults that you can think of. I feel like that's just how the British work. This is a family channel, kind of. So we are going with some of the less intense, but still quite funny, silly, and still insulting phrases that are used in the UK and not so much in the US. Now, the first on my list is...
What you gonna say? The thumbnail said something like thick as a plank. I don't think I've heard that insult, but I would imagine it means like you're calling somebody dumb, right? Thick as a plank. Thick. You're thick. In the brain. But what you gonna say? Let's see, number 1.
Is the term muppet, which is often used in the UK like, you muppet, you forgot your keys, or you muppet, you, I don't know, did some...
Yeah, I have heard people call, I have heard that British people use the term muppet, like for a foolish dumb person, based on the Jim Henson Muppets. But if someone called me a muppet, I know they're using it as an insult. But part of me would take it as a compliment, because Muppets are free and open to the world. They're childlike, innocent, carefree, positive. Most of them. Some of them are not. Love, joy, all that stuff. Muppets are good people, so in a way I would take it as a compliment.
Something foolish, it's kind of like an incompetent person, but it's meant in a sort of affectionate way. It's not really, an intense or really bad insult. You couldn't be like that angry calling someone a muppet. I had never heard the use of the phrase muppet to insult somebody though. In America, we would typically just default in our heads to the Muppets. So if you said this to an American, we would be thinking that you're comparing us to Kermit the Frog or Miss Piggy, which I would say is not an insult. And the next UK...
Exactly. That's exactly how I was thinking of it. She did mention that it was an insult, but sort of endearing. What was the word she used? Affectionate. Yeah, cute little Muppet.
So if you said this to an American, we would be thinking that you're comparing us to Kermit the Frog or Miss Piggy, which I would say is not an insult.
If someone compared me to Miss Piggy, I might take that as an insult. She's a reprehensible character. She's abusive, she's toxic, she's a narcissist, she's kind of a... Right? Also, she's a hog, like she eats
And the next UK insulting phrase on my list is definitely like a kid-friendly one, and it's I've heard people call their kids silly sausages. Again, it's quite a nice insult. It's...
Yeah, I've never heard that. That reminds me of like a silly goose. You silly goose. That's kid-friendly.
Their kids silly sausages. Again, it's quite a nice insult. It's said affectionately, if that's possible. It's a very gentle comment about doing something silly or doing something daft. Again, it's not something that you say like in anger when you're actually like yelling at somebody or disciplining someone. You would then look stupid calling someone a silly sausage. But we don't call people silly sausages in America. This is a very like quintessential British phrase, I feel like, and it's quite nice.
Yeah, never heard silly sausage. Seems friendly. Seems very British. You silly sausage. You silly sausage. Could be pillow talk as well.
Phrase, I feel like, and it's quite nice. Next on my list is kind of a list of phrases, so you could say someone is thick as a plank, thick as mince, I've heard. Thicker than a submarine door is one that I found on the internet. And
that's good. Thick as a submarine door. It's pretty damn thick, y'all.
And this is referring to someone who is stupid. So thick meaning stupid, not intelligent. You can get creative with the ending. So comment below what's your favorite thick as blank insult. But we wouldn't really use this in the US because we don't use the word thick to mean stupid. Typically when we hear the word thick, we are literally thinking about something that is large or
fat.
Actually thick. So it has to do with a measurement as opposed to someone being stupid. So if you called an American thick as a plank, we'd most likely think that you're calling us fat rather than stupid.
No, no. People use thick. What did people comment is a face like a bulldog chewing a wasp. A face like a bulldog chewing a wasp. That's great. Who is this? Alex, I'm 7CX. Face like a smacked arse.
Now the next one on my list is another kind of cute one, wally. Again, it's a more gentle insult, but it refers to someone who is inept. And
I've never heard this, I don't think. Immediately I'm thinking of the movie WALL-E with the robot, but that's also a very loving character. Like, I would take that as a compliment.
Gentle insult, but it refers to someone who is inept. And based on my research, the lore is that it originated at a festival in the late 1960s, like a music festival, when a man named Walter got separated from his friend group. Allegedly, they all started searching for him, calling Wally, and eventually the whole crowd got in on the joke, chanting Wally, again, kind of like as a joke. Did this really happen? Did I find first-person resources who said I was there and this happened? No. So take this with a grain of salt, but that is the kind of tale behind it. Now, we wouldn't use the name or the insult of Wally in America. Even our version of Where's Wally is called Where's Waldo in the US. And we'd have no idea what it meant if you called us a Wally. We wouldn't use the term Waldo in the same way, so we wouldn't call someone a Waldo as an insult. When I think of the word Wally, I think of like a wallaby, which maybe actually is an insult, could be an insult in and of itself, but the term Wally, again, is a very kind of British sounding insult to me that we don't use in the US. It is British sounding.
How do you would you call someone the name Wally, or would you say you're a Wally? Wally is a British English expression referring to a silly or inept person, which later develops into an umbrella term for vulnerable individuals. Okay. That's a nice way to say silly or inept. Vulnerable individuals. In 1974, a group of New Age travelers were encamped near Stonehenge, and to help hinder the process of eviction by the landowners, all gave their name as Wally of Wessex, Wally being a conveniently anonymous umbrella for vulnerable individuals. Oh, my radio isn't working. That's because you haven't switched it on, you Wally. Okay, so it's a noun. You don't call them Wally. You say you are a Wally. Got it.
Next on my list is 3 slices short of a loaf or a sandwich short of a picnic.
I've heard that before.
This is another way to say someone is dumb or lacking intelligence, but using food to basically illustrate that you're not all there. You're not all with it. America has similar types of insults. We actually have a lot, but we tend to use things like not the sharpest knife in the drawer, not the sharpest tool in the shed, which is part of a famous song. We might also say, and you can let me know if you say this in the UK, we could say the lights are on but nobody's home, the elevator doesn't go to the top floor, not the brightest bulb, or not the brightest crayon in the box. But we wouldn't necessarily use the bread or picnic or sandwich inspired version that I've heard in the UK.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. I've heard that before. Not the sharpest tool in the shed. Oh.
Not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
Oh, that's not what I asked for, Google. What is your favorite not the sharpest tool in the shed type of saying? Couldn't pour piss out of a boot with instructions written on the heel. Elevator doesn't go to the top floor. Hamster has died but the wheel is still going. Not the brightest sandwich in the drawer. That doesn't make sense. The lights are on but nobody's home. He's only rowing with one oar. She's not playing with a full deck. Few fries short of a happy meal. Oh, that's a good one. Blank has an IQ about 6 points higher than butter, 10 cents short of a dime. But what song? Smash Mouth? Oh, and that Smash Mouth song All Star, I think he says, I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. Right? It was around before that song, though. That song came out in like 1999.
Now, the next insulting British thing on my list that I hadn't heard of before moving to the UK is actually a gesture. And it is an insulting gesture to do to someone where you put two of your fingers up at them. And I'm not going to do it on the camera, though it means nothing to me, which I'll explain in a minute. But you basically do a peace sign with your fingers with your palm facing yourself. It's definitely not nice. It could be used jokingly between friends or someone that you know well, but it could also be put up to someone who just cut you off in traffic or whatever it is. Now, I could guess what this gesture meant when I first moved to the UK if I had to, but I had never seen this particular gesture because in the US, we don't do this. We do something very similar, but that's putting your middle finger up. This is a widely known insulting gesture in the US, putting your middle finger up at them, and it's called giving someone the middle finger.
We all know
but
this.
Once you add another finger to the situation, to an American, we would just be confused at what you're doing. And the next British insult on my list is...
This is fun. This is more, there's more girth to this. This is probably, if I was gonna do the act to you of what I'm telling you, this would be, well, this would be a better tool. But what about this? What about, like, really, this is what is gonna get the blood flowing. I'm sorry.
And the next British insult on my list is one I've actually always wanted to talk about, and it's the word bloody. Now, the word bloody in the UK is not necessarily an insult, but it is a swear word. Now, one of the most fascinating things that happens to me in...
Hang on, Kaylin. A few times I've been told that bloody, it's not really a swear word. It's kind of like in America saying damn. It's not that bad. It's kind of on the verge of being bad, but not really bad. Like, little kids shouldn't say damn, but teenagers can say damn. You know what I mean? It's like, don't say it around the old ladies. Most of the time it's gonna be okay. Right? Right. Bloody.
An insult, but it is a swear word. Now, one of the most fascinating things that happens to me in the UK is that someone will say this word around me, and unlike other swear words, well, they'll just keep talking. Often if someone says this, they'll apologize as if they've just said something pretty intense. And I get this particularly from generations who are older than me. Americans do not use this word at all in the same way we would use bloody as just a descriptive word, and maybe you cut your finger and your finger's bloody. That's where it ends. We've only heard this word as like a swear word in Harry Potter, basically. And this has created an experience for Americans in the UK, whether visiting or living, where we basically don't think of this word as anything serious. Because what is Harry Potter? It's a fantasy story for children. So the word bloody to us sounds like a funny word. Not that serious. A fantastical word associated with flying unicorns or whatever else.
But it was around way before Harry Potter. I think Harry Potter has nothing to do with it, in my mind.
We are not offended in the absolute slightest by the use of this word around us
bloody,
because
bloody,
we
bloody,
have
bloody,
no
bloody,
context
bloody,
of it being a
bloody.
rather obscene swear word. And this is what I love about language because, again, somebody who did grow up in the UK, again, particularly certain generations, could say this word around me and feel like they've possibly offended me or they need to apologize for saying something obscene. Whereas to me, it doesn't even clock, it doesn't even register as something that would be insulting or obscene.
Yeah. It doesn't, bloody.
The next phrase on my list is, again, could be a group of phrases, but one that I found particularly repeated often is a face that would frighten a police horse. People would also say this like a face, like a insert the blank, fill in the blank with something insulting. The only similar insult that we would use often in the US is a face only a mother could love. And that means someone or something is ugly. But I feel like in the US, we don't get quite as creative with the options here. We just like go straight to making you feel insecure that only your mom loves you. Whereas in the UK, this phrase is often associated with like horses and donkeys. But you can also say other things. So let me know your...
Yeah. What was the one in the comments? A face like a bulldog eating a wasp. I love that. It's so creative. Yeah, we don't really have those. Yeah, I can't think of any. I don't think we really have that. Yeah.
So let me know your comments below. How would you fill in the blank in this insulting British phrase, a face like a blank, or a face that would blank? And the last word on my list is numpty. It's mildly insulting. Again, it can be used as an affectionate phrase. It's not necessarily the meanest insult that you've ever heard. It started around the 1980s in the UK, and it means that someone, again, is being like daft or stupid. In the UK, we do have a similar word. We would use the phrase numbskull, which again
US,
is
right?
not particularly scathing, but this is actually said to be the origin of numpty. So similar, but we don't really use the phrase numpty in the US. Now that brings me to the end of this video. So if you're not from the UK, you've just learned some interesting insults. And if you are from the UK, leave a comment down below. What's your favorite British insult? If your comment doesn't show up, it's probably because YouTube deleted it and censored it, not me.
Right. Yeah,
but I would love to hear some of your more creative insults that you can think of that are used in the UK. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Ken. Y'all be sure to go to Girl Gone London and like and subscribe. Let's read some more of these comments. Face like a spot welder's bench. A face like a melted welly. A face like a busted arsehole. Ooh. A bulldog licking piss off a nettle. A face like a bag of spanners. A face like a bulldog licking piss off a thistle. Wow. As thick as a Docker's sandwich. As much use as an ashtray on a motorbike. That's funny. As much use as a chocolate teapot. Or some say chocolate fire guard. Rare as a rocking horse. Oh, yeah. If I had a face like yours, I'd teach my arse to speak. Hide the face, invade the base. It's so messed up. Wow. Hide the face, invade the base. Wow. Some really creative insults, y'all. Way to go. These were great. Well, y'all, I'd like to thank my patrons. I'd like to thank my Buy Me a Coffee folks. Thank y'all for watching this with me, and I'll see you next time. Later!